Hey everyone, it's Ben Hardy here, and in today's video, we're going to be talking about the 2023 GR Corolla. Now, before we get into the video, I do want to mention that my car buying course is available for sale right now, so if you want to save time and money the next time you purchase a car, link to that in the description down below. Let's get right into the video. So let's talk about the specs on the GR Corolla, and then I'll give you guys my thoughts on the car as someone who owned a Ford Focus RS, which would have been a direct competitor with this car. So first off, the big news with this is it is only going to be available with a 6-speed manual. They're not doing an automatic, which I am so grateful for. And so yeah, that's the first bit of big news. Now the second bit is there is two packages that will be available at launch, the Core package and then the Circuit Edition. The Core package will be the package that most people will be able to get, and this is going to be a package where you can have it in base form or you can load it up with a bunch of performance options and then also interior options. The Circuit Edition, on the other hand, is just going to come fully loaded as standard. It's going to be limited availability with that package, and it's going to have, like I said, all the performance goodies and all of the interior goodies as well. And speaking of performance goodies, it's going to have cool stuff like a carbon fiber roof, right? And then, you know, stylistically on the car, it's really aggressive. You've got really wide fenders in the front and in the rear. It sounds like the front fenders are all one piece, whereas the rear, they kind of have like additions onto it, and that's just what worked best with the car. And they did a lot of stuff in terms of from a stylistic perspective, but then also from a performance perspective to like really tune the weight distribution. So like the battery pack is in the rear of the car rather than in the front, like most cars, to help out with weight distribution. But moving from that to the performance, it is going to have a turbocharged 1.6 liter 3-cylinder that goes through that 6-speed manual transmission. Now, this engine comes from the GR Yaris. In the Yaris, it produces 257 horsepower, but in the Corolla, it produces 300 horsepower, 273 pound-feet of torque, and peak horsepower is at 6,500 RPMs. And so, yeah, pretty crazy setup. The big news with this is everyone's like, oh, wow, it's 100 horsepower per cylinder, which, I mean, that's crazy, to be frank. And if you guys are wondering how they're able to manage all of this, Toyota's basically opened up the whole front end of the car from a grille perspective to make it so there's lots of airflow to keep things cool. And it also should sound pretty good. We'll have to see when I get to review one, but it should sound pretty good. It also is going to have the Corolla's auto rev match system. I've already reviewed Corollas with that system, and so I imagine with this turbocharged engine, it should be smoother than with the naturally aspirated 4-cylinder that it's usually paired with. But, you know, again, I'll have to see when I drive it. Now, the other cool thing from a performance perspective is this is going to have a similar all-wheel drive system to the Ford Focus RS, where you can send more torque to the rear. So you can do a 50-50 split, you can do a 40-60, and then you can do a 30-70. And so basically 50-50 would be for like track use, 30-70 would be for like drifting and canyon fun. And then on top of that, it is going to have a torsion limited slip differential in the front and in the rear. Like I said, with the Core package, you'll have to add this as an option, but with the Circuit Edition, it'll come standard, which is fantastic. Now, from a tire perspective, it's going to have 235 millimeter tires in the front and in the rear on 18-inch wheels. And then we're going to have 14-inch brakes in the front and 11.7-inch brakes in the rear. And with the Circuit Edition, it'll have red brake calipers, which will look fantastic. And then interior-wise, it'll have all the upgrades that the modern Corolla has. So you'll have a bigger infotainment system. The gauge cluster is going to look cooler, kind of similar to what you have seen in like my review of the Toyota 86. Go watch that review. Gauge cluster is going to be somewhat similar to that. And same with the steering wheel design, and then as well as the shifter and the pedals. So basically, they've taken a lot of elements out of the Toyota 86, new Toyota 86, and put this into the new GR Corolla from a stylistic perspective with the interior. Again, you guys can see the interior photo, but that's just to give you a quick rundown with the car. And so, I mean, all of it sounds pretty cool. Now, pricing has not been released on this car, but I'm assuming for a base model version of the car, it's probably going to start somewhere in the $30,000 range, and then the fully loaded Circuit Edition before dealer markups will probably be somewhere in the $40,000 range. And so I guess that will get us into the opinion section of today's video. So first off, stylistically, I think that Toyota has nailed it. So the new Corolla is already a really good looking car, just like in base form as a hatchback. The sedan, I don't know, but as a hatchback, it's a really good looking car. And this basically just takes it to a whole nother level. Super aggressive. I think this is one of the best looking hatchbacks ever made, just period. Like, they nailed it. And again, as someone who owned a Ford Focus RS, I think this looks better than the Ford Focus RS. And then from an interior perspective, same thing. I think they nailed it with the interior styling. For the segment that this is in, I think the interior looks really nice. It's got that performance appearance. And again, I think that Toyota nailed it. Now, from a performance perspective, this is where things get a little bit dicey. So Toyota has basically spent a lot of time with making this car lightweight, but it didn't end up being as lightweight as we would have thought. So the Ford Focus RS weighs about 3,400 pounds roughly. This weighs about 3,200 pounds, so it's 200 pounds lighter, but it also has 50 less horsepower than the Ford Focus RS and like, what, 70 something pound-feet of torque less than the Ford Focus RS, because the Ford Focus RS from the factory was 350, 350. And on top of that, this isn't really doing anything particularly groundbreaking, because this is basically taking a lot of really cool elements from the Ford Focus RS with, you know, crazy all-wheel drive system, manual transmission. The Ford Focus RS didn't have auto rev match like this has, so that's cool. That's, well, the Honda Civic Type R has that. So it's basically taking a bunch of elements from the best hot hatches and putting them together, which I think is great. But I still think, and this is just my personal opinion, they should have given it more power. They should have made this beat the Ford Focus RS, and it seems like nobody wants to do that. Like Honda has, like the new Civic Type R hasn't been like officially released with all the specs, but it doesn't sound like Honda's going to beat it. Subaru completely got rid of the STI, so they're never going to beat the Ford Focus RS. And so, you know, again, being someone who owned a Ford Focus RS, this looks like a really cool car, and it's exciting, and I think that this is going to just drive like nothing else before it. I think that with all the tech they've added, and with, you know, the fact that this weighs a little bit less, I think there's going to be a level of excitement to it. But I don't think that it's exciting enough for me to want to go and get one after owning a Ford Focus RS, right? If I'd never owned a hot hatch and I saw this, I'd be like, oh, cool, I'm going to go all in and buy this. But having owned the Focus RS, I don't feel like this would give me anything that the Focus didn't from an experience perspective, if that makes sense. So I think Toyota did an amazing job. But I wish they would have, you know, amped things up a little bit more. It seems like everyone's been really conservative in this segment since Ford left it. Everyone's like, oh, Ford left a segment, we don't have to try as hard, right? It seems like that's kind of been the mentality. It's like, no, you should continue to, you know, push the limits. But anyways, I want you guys to let me know what you think about the new GR Corolla if you're planning on getting one. Obviously, you know, once I have a chance to review it, I'll review one, and, you know, maybe after driving it, my opinion will completely change on the car. That has happened several times. And so then you guys can, you know, pull this video up and be like, hey, Ben, remember when you said that one thing and you were completely wrong? And yeah, I'll accept it. But yeah, that's going to sum things up. And as always, again, if you want to save time and money the next time you purchase a car, link to my car buying guide in the description down below. It's very inexpensive. It's super affordable, and it will save you a lot of money going through the course. But anyways, yeah, I'll see you.